Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So 36-year-old Texas resident and Marine veteran Alex Harkrider planned his trip to D.C. with his friend, with his co-defendant, Ryan Nichols. He was also just sentenced, but they were headed to D.C. for the idea of violence. They discussed that at length before January 6th, and they talked about which weapons they were going to be taking with them. So on January 1st, Nichols texted Harkrider and he wrote, quote, "We need to speak in person, LOL," and quote, "What I'm about to relay can't be done over the phone." Then in another text exchange on January 3rd, Nichols warned Harkrider that DC was going to be a war zone, that was a direct quote, and quote, "big possibility that actual battle goes down." So Harkrider replied, quote, "I'm looking forward to it." Then later in the exchange, Harkrider said, quote, "I'll bring every freedom blaster I own then," and quote, "We're stopping in Kentucky on the way for those plate carriers too, right?" And the prosecutor confirmed that Harkrider and his friend each ended up taking two weapons, two guns to DC. And the night prior to the Capitol attack, they were walking around the streets of DC. They were with various groups that were confronting each other. And the police were out there that were trying to make sure that there wasn't some sort of big brawl because there were pro-Trump and anti-Trump groups. And so while Harkrider was standing right next to him, Nichols was screaming, quote, "Those people in the fucking Capitol building are our enemy." He also yelled at the police and he was warning them that Trump supporters didn't have their backs anymore and quote, "You better have our back or we're going to fucking show you. Heads will fucking roll." So on January 6th, Harkrider and Nichols headed to the Capitol after Trump's speech. They were each wearing body armor. They had ballistic plates in their vests. And Harkrider was openly carrying a tomahawk axe. Nichols also had a crowbar with him. And then as they marched to the Capitol with the rest of the mob, Nichols just made this rambling live stream video that he posted to social media. And he warned that they were, quote, going to drag motherfuckers through the streets. And he said, quote, "You fucking politicians are going to get fucking drugged through the streets." He repeated threats like that multiple times. And then eventually Harkrider chimed in and he said, quote, "Cut their freaking head off. You can do it." So when they reached the Capitol grounds, they headed straight to the Lower West Terrace Tunnel and they started pushing against the police. They each lowered their heads and their shoulders. They joined in with that collective heave-ho push against the police. And Harkrider was seen grabbing a big canister of pepper spray that had been stolen from the police. And he held it above his head for a little while. And then he passed it over to other people to use against the officers. So after that, Harkrider went back to assisting with the pushing, with the heave-ho. And a short time after that, Harkrider and his friend moved over to a window that was next to the tunnel. You guys remember this? It was a big arch tunnel. They both entered the Capitol through that window because other members of the mob had broken the glass. And then Harkrider was seen on video. He was inside the Senate the Senate office for a short period of time. He exited and he stood on the window ledge for a while with his friend. And Nichols was shouting to the crowd. He was using a bullhorn. And Harkrider joined in with some of the chants. And then the two of them climbed back into the Senate office through the broken window. At one point, the mob outside was singing the national anthem, and so Harkrider was seen on video. He leaned his upper body out of the window, and he was pumping his fist in the air, and then he made a slashing motion across his neck with his finger. So a short time after that, Harkrider and his friend exited the building, and Harkrider stole a piece of broken furniture. So you guys might recall people were in that Senate office. They were breaking up the furniture. They were handing it out to other people or climbing out with it themselves, and it was used against the police as weapons. So he took a piece of this broken furniture on his way out. He took it home with him, and the FBI found it when they searched his property. And the FBI interviewed Harkrider on January 18th of 2021, and he admitted, quote, crawling through the window was fucking stupid. And, quote, as soon as I crawled through the window that was broken, that's when I really fucked up. However, he still tried to claim that he was just part of the crowd. He denied touching the canister of pepper spray. And so Harkrider was arrested that same day, January 18th of 2021, and in a superseding indictment, he was charged with civil disorder, obstructing an official proceeding, theft of government property, entering a restricted building or grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, one of which also included that deadly or dangerous weapon enhancement, and parading or demonstrating in a Capitol building. So Harkrider refused a plea deal. He opted for a bench trial, and in January of 2024, he was convicted on all counts. So he was looking at up to 20 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $250,000 in fines based on just the obstruction charge, or conviction, I should say. The prosecutor, though, requested only 3 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. And Harkrider has a couple of previous arrests, both for driving under the influence. He was also convicted and sentenced in one case, but the other one was dropped for some unknown reason. So the government says Harkrider failed to comply as well with his pretrial release conditions. For instance, they once caught him outside of his district without pre-approval, without notification. Apparently, they were trying to schedule a home visit, and he had to admit to them, yeah, I'm not exactly there right now. And so he was busted. And then Harkrider hasn't complied with reports that he was supposed to turn in to the pretrial services department. His attorney tried to blame his PTSD. They said he has a history of excess alcohol consumption. They also tried to blame Trump's lies for some of his actions. And then she told the judge that Harkrider was just following Nichols. They said, Nichols was the leader. Harkrider, you can't really blame him that much. He was just a follower. But Harkrider told the court, quote, I don't mean in any way to minimize what happened on January 6th. I do take responsibility for my actions and what I said that day. So U.S. District Judge Royce Lamberth presided over Harkrider's case, and he said, quote, you're one of the cases that makes January 6th difficult for me because you're basically a good person who did a wrong thing that day. And then he told Harkrider that he, quote, did good by your country by serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. But Judge Lamberth said that Harkrider, quote, did wrong that day. And he referred to January 6th as a, quote, disaster for the country. So when all was said and done, he sentenced Harkrider to 2 years in prison, 2 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. So considering that he didn't physically harm an officer that day and he didn't personally vandalize anything, I think it was a decent sentence comparatively, right? Not overall, but compared to what we've seen, I think it was decent. I just think that, when you refuse to take a plea deal, when you force the government to go through the time and expense of a trial, you should get more time. You should get a lot more time. And I know that's the way it's supposed to work, but it doesn't seem like the judge applied that logic in this case. So that is my issue, is that if he had taken a plea deal, okay, give him the 2 years. But without a plea deal and you're convicted on all counts, he deserved a lot more time. So I will let you know if I hear any more, but another one who won't be voting for Trump this November. All right, I will let you know. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.